Hello, doilies. We're here. We're here, and I am excited about this episode because we get to say bye bye.
I
If you follow me on Instagram, I even put up something. I won't play it because I don't know how it will come across, but I put up a little post about it on my account, and it's in my stories. And I put the song "Bye Bye Bye" by Callum. This
and I
little
think of the old SNL sketch of the people on the plane. Bye bye, bye. Don't let
and
don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
And I know that this season was a very long season and they broke it up into two parts. So when we get to this half, I was thinking in my head, so how long were they really together? And they do say it, 2 months. She said they were together for 2 months and she just couldn't do it. I mean, when she got into I love how they wrote how when she just got into his breathing space, meaning Jake, how she was like all teary eyed and just, she
Yeah,
knew she made a massive mistake, and she also was, I think, grieving the girl that she used to be, you know?
and I think she was grieving a lot that she hurt Jake so badly. She knew how bad I mean, she broke him. He was basically broken.
He was, but he moved on, right? And
Mhm.
moved on, but not like moved on to a whole bunch of women. He was very respectful by what he did. I love when it's in the beginning and she's walking down the street and they zero in. There's a screenshot. Actually, I have a screenshot of it, but I didn't post it or anything because I thought it was so. This is the first thing we see. It's her hands and she's got the her ring
Mhm.
and she puts it in her pocket, and that's how they open the scene. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm here for that.
She really didn't need to know any more details about Callum and what he was up to. She was already pulling back. She was not feeling it, and I think she tried her best to. I think she felt responsible, that it was the responsible thing to do, to give it another shot. And
Hmm.
the longer she spent doing that, the more she realized, I can't. This is not working for me.
I know. Our friends that are here with us, how did you feel about Callum? Did you were you okay that they introduced this character to just give some angst between the two? Because it did, but it also showed us how much Jake had changed. And I'm curious about what, everyone else is thinking. Was it worth it that because when you're watching this in real time, you're like, no, you know
I
what I
tell you
mean?
what, Callum Actor brought his A game.
He did.
I will say that he did a wonderful job of just making you feel like he was a weasel. I mean, I got that sense of him from the time he showed up. Part of it was, oh no, something else coming up with between Jake and Leslie, but the other part was he was just really kind of weaselly, just something about him. And so I
Right.
think it takes a lot of talent to pull that off.
Um, I was I wasn't mad that they introduced someone because not that you want to like make the couple always be in so much trouble. I just felt like we needed to see just a little bit more growth. And then I would have been happy if they were together longer. I like to see a couple happy, not just at the very end. I would have liked to have seen them more as a couple and maybe that terrible stuff that happens at the end of 5, if it happened in the middle when they took that, winter break and we got to see them more as I would have liked that more.
Nothing against Ryan Robbins. He really milked his role as
Yeah.
Callum.
Yeah.
But you're right. If they had spent like a couple less episodes on that and then put them toward the end, I really felt a little cheated that we didn't even get to see Jake hold one of the twins. It just, what was, we got to see Tinny and Des. We saw their wedding. We didn't get to see Jake and Leslie. Come on. And
I
that
know.
had to be a calculated decision. Like, what can we give the fans? Well, we've already
Yeah.
shown them Jake and Leslie for 6 years, so let's give some service to Des and Tinny. But still,
I know. And this was the beginning of Des and Tinny too. I mean, they've had a long history, but they're actually starting to date. And Jake's looking like he he's listening to what he's saying, and he's looking, and he's like, he's not quite there because he's a little bit distracted about being a dad. Mary said she hated every minute of it, but then she also says, yes, Kathy, yes, scream
That's
with
why
you.
you hated every minute. He was that
Yep,
good. Yeah.
yeah. And Janice saying couldn't wait for him to leave again, but didn't want him dead, just gone. Yes.
Hmm.
And it's good that they keep him alive because if they had ever gone and when made other shows, like he could always come back, he could always resurface,
Now, I have this feeling that although he was a perfect, you know, excuse my French, a douche kind of character, um,
They say that in the show.
he actually loved her, I believe. And he thought that he could just kind of slide back in the way he had years
Hmm.
ago and just, fool her into, believing that he's this wonderful guy who butter wouldn't melt in his mouth, but she had grown up this time. And I found it odd. She said one line to him when she was kind of ditching him. She said,
Yeah.
"One thing you never knew, I always knew when you were lying to me." Um, but I just, I overlooked it. Well, if you knew that, did that power fail you when he came back, or you just decide, in spite of that, in spite of the fact that I know he really hasn't changed, I'm going to give it another shot?
Well, I think because she said this more than once, they even had her in dialogue wise to kind of like, I guess, make it make sense for us, where she says to again, we were married, that there's something to say for that.
Hmm.
Like I think it was like moralistically she was trying to make a go of it. But I mean, she was very much in love with Jake. I mean, there's a point where she and Callum don't even have their conversation, and she's talking to the coroner, and the coroner's like, "Oh yeah, like send drinks and also send that Jake Doyle." And she looked and she goes, "Well, we'll start with the drinks."
Yeah.
She was not.
I thought it was interesting that he was gone for what was it, 7 years? How long was he gone?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, so he was gone for 7 years, and he managed to, just let her think he was dead all that time. She went undercover. Well, I'm talking about, stuff further ahead, but
Yep.
everybody's seen it. But I thought it was interesting in contrast. She went undercover, and I don't think she lasted 3 days before she was like, first she just called and hung up on him, and it was, she sent him where she was. It's like, nah, I've gone back long enough without my Jake, so I'm
Yeah,
on
I love that. Those
there.
are some of my favorite scenes.
Hmm.
Bonnie is saying it was worth it. It made Jake somewhat more mature, especially when Jake tells him he is only doing this for Leslie. That's all he ever said, and he didn't even tell her. And then which was good because they made Jake show how mature he was, and by not saying anything. And then Callum was like, "Oh, it's Jake." And she's like, "He didn't even say anything to me. My officers, my
Hmm.
people." Speaking of which, I love when Hood calls calls Tinny Little Doyle. She
I
doesn't.
love I love Hood just in general. He is
I
just
know.
he's such a fun character.
I know. Jan was saying perhaps she was just being kind to then let him off more easily. I think that was part of it too. She was just she was still the type of person that wanted to always do the right thing.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? And even Jake has that part where he says to her, basically in this episode, "I'm not the best person to give advice to you, but do what's right for you." You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, stop this
He was
nonsense.
willing to sacrifice, what he wanted so that she could be happy. I mean, if you look at that episode and look at the very first episode of the whole show side by side, it's like, is that the same character or what?
I know. I know. Now, there were so many wonderful, wonderful one-liners in this, like always. Like Mal didn't have much. We didn't see Mal and Rose. Like Rose was one little spot where she laughed, but Mal, we really didn't even see much of him. And I loved it because when we did, he'd answer the phone and he'd say, "Hey, Daddy." Like there were a lot of references to him being a father, even with Des. Des says some crazy crap. So I love when Des and uh Jake get mixed up in that whole making a delivery thing.
Hmm.
And then what you see is those two, and then you see Tinny and Leslie together, and their men are there, and like, and don't get, and they're all like thinking what some a whole bunch of stuff, but one is like those two are together, huh? Is that And when before that even happened, I love the part where Des said, "Oh, if there's whatever in here, I'm gonna lose my poo," and he says, "Just keep in whatever's in you."
Yeah. I mean, a grown man, I'm going to lose my poo.
I know, I'm gonna lose my
Can we
poo.
talk for a minute about the title of this episode? Major
Yes.
crimes. So we had the centerpiece crime, which was, her friend slash CI getting killed, and the other lady, the bartender. So what were the other crimes? I was thinking that part of it was um, how Callum was trying to gaslight her. I thought that was kind of criminal. And what do you did you notice
No,
anything else or
no, I think that you're right. Because what's the title again? It's
major crimes?
Major Crimes. So you know what major crime is, of course, in the episode. I mean, in Major Crimes, um, in the police world, but also it was a major crime that he was behaving the way he was. Oh yeah, it was definitely double meaning in there. I absolutely believe it.
I even love the bad guy in this episode. I'm kind of not being linear tonight.
No,
Sorry.
no, you don't have to.
The one enormous guy who was talking to Jake at the end, and he got busted. And he goes, by the way, and they were talking about Cal, and he goes, "What are you talking about?" This has been in the last 2 weeks. He borrowed this money from the loan shark, and Jake still wouldn't bust him. He didn't want to bruise Leslie's heart. He
Yeah,
didn't want to be the one to tell her. That I just felt more in love with him, the character in that episode, because
I know.
he was just so all about. I don't want Leslie to get hurt, not because of me, not because of you. I'm going to save your sorry butt because Leslie cares about you, and Callum could have cared less. It just the contrast between the two was just
A
absolutely.
lot.
And you think because Leslie wasn't present for any of the scenes with Jake and Callum that she wouldn't have a sense of that, but I think she truly did. And I think didn't she even say something like you're not as good as Jake, or she alluded to that
Hmm.
they're polar opposites, and I just loved it.
And at the end, when she walks into to find a space for herself to cry, I mean, she gave a really good cry. She's good at that. She's just crying, and
That was
I think
from the heart. I mean, that
the
was.
stomach, right? I think she's just crying for it all, like for what she was, what she thinks she may have lost and can't get
I
back.
think that's what it is. I think she was crying for what she threw away, and
Yep.
she's afraid at that point that she won't get it back. There is, I don't remember what episode it is, but it's after this one. It may even be a few after this, and it was a throwaway line from Jake. And oh, I know what it was. It was in the episode expansion. So it's a few episodes past this. But he and Dad are Mal are walking along, and he's talking to Leslie about a case that they're working on, and can she do this for him or whatever. And she's like, yeah, that's fine, I can do it, all business. And then at the end, he's like, and Leslie, yeah, I miss you. And then he turns around to Mel, don't say a word, don't say anything. And Mel's just looking like, what would I say? And that's the episode when he said that. That's when she knew, okay, I still, there's still something there. I didn't lose him entirely.
I know. And that's cute. That's so
Mm-hmm.
cute. Now, prior to that, like early on, we've got her walking down the street. I know because we're all over the place with the ring, but then he's on the phone talking to her, and he wants to tell her, I'm going to come see you. And he was running late, but she's so distracted and hears gunshots. He's trying to tell her that he's, a father. And he never in the whole episode ever gets to tell her he's a father.
Right.
And then there's always those digs about him being a father. But when he's talking to her, she says, "Oh, is this your way of trying to tell me
You're
that,
seeing somebody.
yeah," and she's like, "Yeah, I got my own issues in that department." And he gets a face like, "Oh, oh."
Mm-hmm.
but he doesn't pressure her
Nope.
ever, even knowing what and part of the reason why I think she's taken off that ring is because all along things are going on, but he doesn't come home, her husband, that night.
I think
Yep.
what's happening is the stuff that's been in the back of her mind is coming to the front now, and she's realizing, dude hasn't changed. I am so not happy with this. And I think it was a combination of things. She realized he was still lying to her. She realized that she was still in love with Jake, and she couldn't fake that she wasn't. And she
Yep.
was living a lie, and she was unhappy. And I think it was all coming to a boil. And then
Yep.
this guy that she almost, it was like almost a mentorship, where she thought of him as a little brother.
Her
And
baby
he was,
brother.
I
Yeah.
felt bad for him too, even though he was on. Talk about a good actor. In that short amount of time, I actually felt for him, and I felt
Yeah.
bad when he
Yeah.
got killed.
Yeah.
And it turned out for no good reason. Just
It was a dumb reason. It was just
mm-hmm,
wrong place,
wrong
wrong time.
time. Yep.
Um, I was curious what everyone and that is here, how they felt, what are their thoughts at this point? Because in retrospect, we've all watched this, I think. I don't think there's anyone here that hasn't. What did you coming to a boil about Doyle? That's cute. That's cute. What about Sloane? Like at this point, we see that conversation between the two, and she's asking him about, how long did you know my mother, what was your relationship like, and he's like, I wish I'd known you all that time. And he's always been good as a father figure because he was always there for Tinny. He's very protective of his family, so no, of course he's going to make a great dad. But when they're having that conversation, I was curious, did you believe that she truly was his daughter, or did you think it in the back of your mind that this could be a scam? What did you think, Kathy? And I want to hear
I
what
thought
everyone
it,
else
I
says.
thought it was a total scam, but I think she really deep down in her heart wanted it to be true, and she was asking him all those questions to see if maybe there was a possibility that he was her biological father. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I definitely think I never believed it for a second, but I think she wanted it to be true, and as time went on, she wanted it more.
Bonnie, you're saying no, you didn't believe it. Christina thinks it was a scam. She thought it was a scam as well. So does Mary. They all thought. They're all saying,
And especially Rose, who is sharp as a tack and suspicious of everybody. I can't believe she just took this piece of paper and said, "Oh, okay, we can accept this." I'm shocked she didn't say, "Jake, you need to go get a blood test."
she may have, but she doesn't mind. She loves taking people in. She
I
probably
know, but
saw some of herself in her.
she never trusted Sloan from the get go,
True.
and it just seemed out of character. Yeah, I accept you, but I know you're scamming us. I know you're not his daughter. I mean, it seemed.
Especially what happens with her later on.
Mhm.
Jan is saying, I thought it was real and I was surprised when it turned out to be fake. I I thought, could this be a scam, right? And then at one point, like in this episode, they wrote her to be so sincere. I was wondering, and I would love to ask the writers this, was it always going to be a scam? Or did they decide as time went on to turn it into one? Do you know what I mean? Because how they have her right in that moment and they're having that conversation, I know when you're saying she really wanted it, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, she it could be true, just the
Mhm.
way they portrayed it, and I'm wondering if they changed their mind, or she's just supposed to be that good, of a scammer.
Well, she is that good. I mean, that's what she did for a living.
It's true. Christina said some things just didn't add up to me. Okay. And Bonnie says, I think she said she knew someone who helped with the DNA. She did. She did. She did. She did. That is why she took his razor. So when you looked at it, it would have shown that, okay. But if he went and had his blood test done with someone who didn't doctor it, it would have,
Right.
yeah, worked. Yeah, that's all very
And
interesting.
he went all in as well. I think part of him wanted to believe it, and so he didn't ask any other questions. Because Jake's no dummy. He's sharp too, and so if he had really wanted to, get to the bottom of it, he would have. He he was happy with the status quo of believing she was his child because that's what he's wanted all along.
Yeah.
He wanted a family, as much family as possible.
And she came at a point that was a good point for him because he needed that distraction, but she brought nothing. That character brought nothing but angst and ruination for that family.
Except she was the one person, and I really appreciated this. She was the one person who called Leslie out for hurting Jake, and she will hold a fond place in my heart for that. When Leslie came over at some point in a later episode, but oh, is Jake here? Why? Do you want to, eat his heart out and feed it to him again? And
Yeah.
Rose was like, okay, you can go upstairs now. But I was like, yay, girl. Somebody needed to tell her.
Mhm. It's true. Jan saying, I think in the end she wanted it to be real. She did. She really did. She absolutely did.
I think Jan, even before the end, because remember, she had started having a guilty conscience. Even at the time they were stealing the money, she could barely bring herself to do it. I mean, she just felt so. She said, "Look what I'm doing, and these people have been nothing but welcoming and took me in, and I'm
Mhm.
doing this to them." Yeah.
I know. Um, the end when Jake winds up in the bar and Hood's like, "Oh, that's a buzzkill for me," and he leaves. When Jake winds up in the bar with, and I forgot her name. What is the name of the?
Coroner.
Yeah, does anybody remember? She's cute.
She's in a lot of. She does Hallmark movies. She does Lifetime movies. I've
Yeah.
seen her a lot.
And I forgot what her name is on the in the this episode, but we see her again. But I thought that she has like a reddish color hair, right?
Mm-hmm.
The woman before that he had him they had him involved with, who was she was in that bank in that, like, was it like a bank teller kind of the uh, something with money in a bank, remember? And it was like their third date, and it was
Oh,
the
she was in charge of security.
that's it. But she had a red hair, a different hue of red hair. And I'm like, do they
Jessica, Jessica Dwyer was the character's name.
okay. Do they purposefully give him redheads on just because his real life wife has sort of got like red hair. So I wonder if they're purposefully doing that.
He has a type.
I think that's cute. I think that's funny. I know. I still wonder about how she knew about who Jack had been with that would have created her.
You mean Jake?
Okay, let's say that again. I still wondered how she knew about who Jake had been. Okay, so that I think was an accident, and she just capitalized on it when he busted her and he saw the picture because that really was her mother, right?
And they
Yes.
really did go to school together.
Yes, but it's a small island, so the
Mm-hmm.
odds of that happening are real. So I think she just, stumbled upon it like all good con artists do. There's one tiny piece of truth and then they use it to their benefit.
Yep.
So I think that's probably how that unraveled. Yeah, we got you, Jan. We got you. When I was first reading it, I didn't. I'm sorry. But that's my surmising. But these are wonderful questions that we could ask the writers. And I always say this, I would love to see what their writers' room is like because they're brilliant. And some of the same writers for this production company, and I know I keep talking about it, are writing for Son of a Critch. And
Mm-hmm.
they just had their season 3 closing. And Mark Critch and the boy the young man who he's actually English, who plays young Mark in the show. We're all talking and all coming out and taking their bows, and I could see who the different writing teams were and what was coming up, and I'm like, they're so stinking talented. It's like whatever they put their hands on, it turns to gold. Like
Yeah.
they're really hardworking and know their stuff. And I would just love to pick their brain because it's fascinating to me. Like ask questions like, did you always know that you were going to have her be a con, Sloan, or did you know that's where the direction
I'd
it was
be shocked
going?
if they change, in midstream due to, whatever outside influences or whatever. I think they have the stuff I've mapped out, but I think the beauty of this whole team is they cast the perfect people for these roles. And
They do.
so they are so, as you say, they are so stinking talented that they can play these absurd storylines of she's a con artist and she comes and she fools Jake into thinking she's his daughter and she steals all their money and yet she ends up, not being a bad person and Jake still cares about her and tells her,
Does.
I'm not sending you to jail, you better straighten up and fly right.
Hmm.
That's that or even Leslie. I mean, someone who breaks Jake's heart, if you think about how many times she broke his heart, and yet we still love her and we're still rooting for them to be together. And in the hands of a less talented actress and actor, we might have been like, nope, nope,
We're
you
done.
move on. Because
Bye-bye.
frankly, the
Bye,
bank
bye, bye.
security person, I adored her. I thought she was cute as a button. And if
Yeah.
they decided to not put Leslie and Jake back together, I could have lived with her
Yeah.
with her and him as a couple. And I thought they left it kind of just out there, they didn't tie that last string up.
Right. Right.
So she
Loose
was a
end.
placeholder. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Um, I find it funny though that there's this one part that kind of and I can't remember what the direction. I know what the big direction is, but there's this one thing I thought was odd. And that's what's his name? Her partner, Tinny's partner. It's not Griffin. What's his name?
Um,
I'm sorry if I said it and
I know
every
who you're talking. I can picture his. Yeah, it's on the tip of my tongue.
well, it's almost like he wants Tinny. He's like a loser though. He wants Tinny now that he knows that there's something going on with her. And Des, and he always makes a point of calling him Grayson. Thank you, Bonnie. Always makes a point of calling Des. And they're in the
Mhm.
bar, and it's at the end, and he kisses her. Like
Mhm.
he kisses her, and she has this look, and then she walks away. You almost think that she's going to go after him, but she doesn't. What
Right.
she does instead is goes after Des, if I'm not mistaken. It's almost like she's like, yeah, I'm not wasting any more time. I need to be with Des.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. But when I
Yep.
first watched it, I was like, no, don't go backwards. And it doesn't. But when I first saw it, so I always have to think about how people are seeing it. They saw it in real time. What's Jan saying here? Well, since Alan was one of the creators of the show, he may have had a rough idea for all of these scenarios. This is true.
I think he pretty much knew. He had this whole show in his head. He had the whole thing planned out.
Well, I remember when he gave his interview, he said it was something he always wanted to do. He had all this stuff planned out and he was all ready and he was excited. And all it got him was like 1 or 2 seasons. And then he had to, expand. But he surrounded himself with good friends and they're extremely loyal to each other. And they're all very talented.
St. John's must have something in the water. 'Cause
What the heck?
what the heck is in that water? And they are loyal to each other.
Yes.
It's like Jack Webb and his repertory company. If there are any Dragnet fans, which I am a huge Dragnet fan, it's the same actors over and over and over from the 50s. If they survived to the reboot in the late 60s, they were on there. It's just amazing the loyalty that they have for each other.
I know. I know. This was a good episode. This was an episode that I thought it was a growing episode.
Mhm.
Everybody, like main character wise, well, that's not true. Well, the five actually main characters. Leslie was growing. Jake is growing. We see Des and Tinny growing, and even Sloane. We see she because usually when we saw her, she was always like on the go and the move. And here she was sitting at that table, and she was trying to be a kid because she's actually an adult in her mind because she's been living on her own. And she was every time I'm here, they're sticking the textbook in my face, and she was truly trying to be. I love when
She
when
wanted to be the daughter Jake believed her to
yes,
be. believe that she could be.
Yes. So she's sitting there and they're having a big conversation. And that's when Des in the beginning comes in with Jake's phone and he says, "Oh, I'm sorry. We're having a mother-daughter conversation."
So you're right. The main cast was growing and Callum was going. There was
Yeah.
nothing not to like about this episode.
Bye, bye, bye. That was funny. Oh gosh. Oh gosh. Jan is, as we're wrapping this up, what great. Thank you, Bonnie, for saying grace. And Jan saying, yes, Kathy, that's exactly what I thought. Another show, Hudson and Rex, is also filmed in St. John's. Yes. I just started to watch it.
Place
And
is crawling with talent.
I have to tell you that I love the main actor. He was in a movie about being a football player, and I thought it was different because he was different. The storyline wasn't your typical Hallmark. The acting was really, really, really good in it. I forget what the actress's name was, and he's the lead. And I'm like, and a dog, and that amazing dog is part of the lead. It's very good. I watched the first episode. I haven't gotten a chance to watch the rest. And you'll notice, of course, the same actors, you'll see them around. They play all the different parts, which is cool. Well, before we go, on our fan page, which is hosted by let's see.
Celeste.
Yes. She had the opportunity. She's a massive, massive Alan Halko fan. And she had the opportunity to go. It's on our page if anybody saw it. She had opportunity on X to she wrote something, I don't know what that is. A, wait a minute. She got to ask Alan Halko a question on his X page. Everybody was talking about the possibility of a new series. And I asked him, how many times did you get punched in the Republic of Doyle? And he answered her and he said, not sure, but a lot. Yeah, I know, that was cute. Yeah.
Speaking of Hudson and Rex, there's another Republic of Doyle connection on there.
What?
Michelle Nolden is one of the cast members.
Oh, see, there's just so many connections. All good stuff.
Excuse me.
Yes, Jan, he did. He hurts his foot. He's their quarterback, I think, and he hurts his foot. And it's funny because who plays his father really is a football player in real life. The guy who plays his father, I forget.
Were they on an island and he needed?
No.
Oh, okay. Wrong movie. Another football player who injured himself.
Yes, Love on the Sidelines.
Oh, that is the one I'm thinking of.
They're not on an island.
They were somewhere, and he had this woman, therapist, come take care of him, and he was really mean to her.
She isn't a therapist. She's his assistant, and he is very mean to her. Yes, she's really a designer, but is trying to break out, and she winds up taking care. And he is mean to her. Yes, he doesn't think that he should, but he didn't do it well with the last one. He's kind of mean to everybody.
Yeah, I did enjoy that movie. There was water involved somewhere on that. I'll have to look that up again.
Yes, I love it. Love it. I watch it every time, and she's real sweet, and so I love it. It's very good. Kathy said, Jen said, no, I'm no to the island, I think. All right. Well, we will be back. We do every other Thursday, and we had to hold back. I asked Kathy to hold it next week because I needed to be every other Thursday because I have a commitment on the other Thursdays and fell off, but now we're back on again. So we'll see each other on the 25th. Is that what it is? Today the 11th? So the 18th is next week, and then we'll go with the following. Okay, here he is. That's who the dad was.
Didn't they have some kind of big football trophy named after him?
I think so.
Okay, maybe I'm wrong again.
No, I said I think so. Oh, gosh. All right, friends. Thank you so much for tuning in. This was fun. I always enjoy talking about Republic of Doyle. I could talk about it forever.
I know, right?
I wish.
And when we get to the very end, we'll just start all over again.
Oh,
that's forever.
I can't get to the end. I just don't want to get to it because when we get to the end, I want more.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to have to start just creating scenarios in my mind for, you know, what they're doing now and how they're moving on.
Jan said that his career ended when he had a compound fracture. Night, Mary. She's saying good night,
Good
doilies.
night, Doilies.
All right. Have a good one.
See you next time.
Yes.